All right, guys. So today we've got Hunter Becton with us. He is a lifelong friend and a huge piece of our business today. So we're going to go over a lot of different things, kind of our past. We've known each other since we were teenagers.
Very much so.
Grew up hanging out, not always working together, and then kind of led to that. So we'll go through kind of that, talk about our friendship. So I'd say we met when I was probably, 15, 16, something like that?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
That made you
13, 14.
13, 14, yeah. And then, let's see, I wasn't in...
Do we remember who we met through?
I don't. I've often wondered that. I would say it was somewhere through the Phillip or some kind of ring. I remember really vividly the house in Cox's Creek. I think that was where the first time we were like hung out, if you will. So when I was 17, my dad moved out of the house that we were renting, and I stayed and continued to rent that house while I was finishing up high school. So every weekend, you put a 17-year-old with his girlfriend and
All of his
one of his buddies in a 3-story house on 10 acres, and they're gonna do what 17-year-olds will do in that situation. So you were there. I used to have to come get you because you couldn't drive yet.
Yep. I remember always telling Mom, you had met her a couple times, and she always really enjoyed Tim. So I'm gonna go stay at Tim's house, and she was like, "Oh yeah, good." And we'd be gone for 3 days, and show back up. After our crazy adventures with no worries at all.
No, it was wild, but we never really got like overly out of hand.
No, just did kid stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No real like drinking and driving, no drugs. That was a huge thing for me. Is like no drugs, no weed, no nothing. We had worked out a deal with the gas station down. We won't name it, but there was a gas station that allowed us to get beer because I did some work for them. So we had the hookup. Like we were living life every weekend. So we did that for a while, but we connected really well. And after that point, we've stayed friends, ever since.
Yep.
And then let's see, I moved out of there and went to the townhouse. I think after that, the townhouse in Mount Washington.
Was it the townhouse or what was that? The buddy's name that we had? That
Josh. No, he was in between townhouses. Yeah, the townhouse, and we used to go grill. We'd grill out in the driveway, go get chicken, and just sit there and grill out and drink beer. So we hung out like every weekend, pretty much.
Yep.
The only time we really grew apart, you had a bit more of a party scene in your younger years than I did. Me and Shelby were already so connected and invested in each other and everything else. It was kind of cool to see the difference in in our paths, right? We've always been like-minded. You grew up being the only child, right? So you didn't have any older brothers or sisters to kind of bounce off of, whereas I had 2 older sisters that I watched kind of, oh, they're going to go do this, or they're going to have kids here or whatever. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You got to just be the full brunt of the experience on what to and not to do. So I know that's the only time we really kind of, we didn't drift apart, but I was always one that don't put yourself in a situation that you don't want to possibly become or do, and you won't, right? So not that I was judging you for doing it, but it was like I didn't want to do it. So if I don't want to do it, I'm just not gonna hang out with you. Yeah. But I feel like obviously you went through it. You can kind of speak on that. I think that's good. It's good for people to know, right? Because we've got 2. Today, we would say that I would say that me and you are probably more similar than any of the rest of my friends in most cases.
I agree with that.
But the stories getting here are widely different, right? So kind of go into, I guess, obviously we hung out, we partied, we grew up together to a certain point, and then go through kind of, I guess, your path or your journey a little bit.
Well, I was gonna kind of go back to where we were, where it started as far as working with you, and we didn't touch on how your dad used to pay us $10 an install, and that was back before I had a license. So I can remember, either I would get a ride to your place in the morning and halfway sleep on the couch for a week, and it was like, hey, I'll pay you whatever during spring break or like summer breaks. And I can remember you always tell me like, well, I'm just paying you because I know somebody to hang out with while I'm on the job.
Yep.
But that was our first encounter with that. You know what I mean? Being having that job. I can remember, it's funny to think about too, is the space that we're sitting in right now
Yep.
was my first position too. I found that very odd. I used to work for John back in the day, and then that transferred over into what, I did with you guys. But yeah, I can remember us playing Guitar Hero for hours on end, and then waking up in the morning and jumping in the van
Yep.
and taking off and picking up jobs from Sears.
Yeah.
And my only job at that time was dishwasher prep.
Yep. Get the new one ready. I'll get the old one out.
Yeah. You better be able to get the line on the dishwasher before I'm out with the old one.
And I was quick, so you had to be quick.
Yeah, I remember that being the old gig.
Yeah.
But then, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think your focus was more. You already had like more of a rooted scenario than I did with your dad at the time. Like I feel like you were more. This is my place. This is the lane that I'm going to hang out in. Where you didn't really have that. I kind of floated all over the place it took me a while to figure out where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Trying to come up with, why did I do what I did? But, I did have a lot of fun in the party scene for a long time. And I think it was just me trying to find my place. You know what I mean? Thankfully we have moved out of that, but, it was part of the scenario, I guess. I don't really know how much to speak to that, but.
So you went, you had to go through different aspects, right? And different scenes or scenarios, as you would say, to kind of develop. So I guess looking back, right? Like I grew up with predominantly a father in the house, and he was the main role in my life. Whereas you were the flip side of that, right? You grew up with predominantly your mom being your go-to. Yep. It was the constant, consistent one that was in your life, right? So I'd say there's probably some variances there. My dad would have killed me if I would have done even half of the stuff that you did. I'd have been terrified to come home. Your mom was much more nurturing than obviously my dad was. So there was an aspect of fear as well from me on like, well, don't poke a bear, you won't get bit kind of thing.
Yeah. I was pretty slick with not getting caught with a lot of things that we did too. But I mean, I don't know. I don't want to dig too deep in that past.
No?
It's not really too much that I want to uncover there.
We'll just say that you had fun in your early years. If you want to consider that fun, or really it's finding your way, right? And just, I guess what I was trying to get from that is that even though our paths widened in that moment, we've came back together kind of as grown men and really parallel, right? Very close. Our belief systems are very close, right? Our marriages, our families. There's not a whole lot that we disagree on when we talk.
Oh, no.
We're very, very similar people today. But to get there, it was different roads. So,
well, okay, we can compare to that. So, I mean, it was a very black and white road if we want to compare ourselves in that scenario. And I'm not afraid to speak on some of it. I mean, I will say I did have a very big problem with drugs and alcohol at one point in my life. If anyone in this town knows me, I was a womanizer for sure. And I ran around with a lot of the wrong people doing a lot of the wrong things. There's no doubt about that. And I'm thankful that it never got me caught up in too many bad situations that led to unfortunate things. And I can only thank God that maybe he was pointing me in the right direction to get me through the dirt at the time. I don't know. But to compare that to you, you stuck with the same woman the entire time. And that's the funny to see the past where they are separate, right? I was all over the place, wild, crazy, like no thought in mind. And you had the same woman the whole time, always, forever. I can never remember you without Shelby. You know what I mean? And on the adverse of the time, you were like, who are you bringing over to my house this weekend?
Right, right.
Who is this person, and how long is she going to be around? But to say that, it is, I'm thankful that we have, or I have, came out of that scenario. Now that I have found the person that I love dearly, and I have 2 beautiful children with her and couldn't imagine my life without her. So, again, like I'm just thankful that led to this.
Yeah. I remember you may remember this. We was on a call and we had started hanging out again. You had you had settled down and you were kind of digging into like who and what you had decided that you were going to be as you gotten older. Keeping in mind all of this was young. I mean, we're still fairly young today, so
Are
this
we
isn't
talking before us working together, or are we talking?
just intermingling through all of it. So I remember a call, and of course, to your point, like me and Shelby have been together since we were 15. I was with her before I even knew you. But you said, like, man, I'm tired. Like I'm basically tired of going and like trying to convince this girl to like me, and then ending that and getting the next one. You're like, I want kind of what you've got. Like I want something constant. And I remember that conversation because in the back of my head I was like, yeah, whatever. But that was kind of the turning point where you started to kind of slow down, right? You had slowed down a lot on the party scene and the different things. It wasn't super long after that you had met Madison, and me and you kind of reconvened. We're going to jump into the you've had a couple goes with the company. So one, when Dad was owning the company and running the company, so you came on as you were going to do water heaters, and you were riding with him, and you didn't like him and he didn't like you. And it's funny now to hear Dad when he's like, I hated him. Of course, he loves you to death now, but like he hated you then. He used to say you got pocket disease. And I was like, what? And he'd be like, I do all the work. And he stands there with his hands in his pocket. I would always laugh. So let's jump into that. So like you come on, God, how old were you?
So I'm trying to think about the progression there. So I sold cars for probably 5 years, and that was from like 21 to where I was 21 years old till 20, 25, 26, something like that. It was 25. And then I quit with that, and then got into the mortgage scene. So I had sold you a couple cars when I was doing that. I remember selling you an Explorer. And then I got into mortgages and ended up financing a house with you at one point in time. So even through all that garbage, Tim was still trying to help me out. What he needed, hey, I know a guy at least, right? And then so I remember having the conversation of the mortgage thing didn't work out, and I had went back to selling cars, and I was just absolutely miserable. And I was like, golly, there's got to be something to do other than this. And that was when we started talking about the water heater thing. I don't remember what kind of conversation we had.
I think you quit doing cars. That's when you did water heaters, and then you left, and then you went to mortgages.
Okay, yeah, it was in between the two. Yeah, that's right.
Because you had like, I'm done with the car scene, and I'm like, oh, you can come on doing this, and then you ended up going with Dad. He was the one training you on all aspects of things.
That's the same. Like his opinion of me then, and my opinion of him then is exactly the same. It's funny how he goes, I hated him then. Well, I hated him too at that point.
Yeah.
I remember we first started doing it. And I don't know, how long did it last? Maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
Yeah, and I just couldn't do it. Like I said, I love your father to death at this point, but we just butted heads nonstop, and never seen anything eye to eye. And I remember coming to him and be like, man, I can't do it anymore.
Yep.
So that was when we went back to the mortgage game, I believe. And then the next jump was when we turned on, you're talking about turning on blinds in Louisville market.
Yes. So I remember I was looking to get a mortgage, and I called you, and you were like, "Yep, let me check," because you were new to it. Like you hadn't you hadn't financed a house, you hadn't done anything. And I remember I was like, "All right, well, I'll use you for this." And you were like, "All right, cool." So you had a manager or somebody that was training you or something that was heavily involved. And my credit wasn't great. The money that I had at the time wasn't great. So it was work. It was work to get the approval. And I remember you. We went through all of this long, strenuous process to get it done. And at the end of it, I remember you calling me after we closed and everything, and you were like, "You know what? I hate this place. I quit." And I'm like,
They
"Wait,
didn't
what?
pay me anything."
Yeah, you were like, "I didn't make anything off of this mortgage."
Yeah.
You had to pay back your training fees, or there was something where it was like
a whole bunch
payback.
of garbage.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the stipulations exactly were. They laid it all out, and there was like 2 or 3 other guys. It was like the first month that we were going to get paid.
Yep.
And I had sold like 2 or 3 mortgages, and it came down to where I made next to nothing. And yeah, that's when we had the conversation after that. I was like, dude, I'm done. If you've got anything, like, I'm open to coming back, but if not, I got to go find something else to do.
Yep, I remember you. I want to come back, but like, can I not train with your dad? I was like, I don't think he wants to train you either. So you came back on. Blinds, window treatments was your forte at that moment, right? So I think you rode with me. Was it me you were riding with?
Yeah, I can remember the actual conversation, and I was sitting on the back porch of the old house on Winchester.
Yep.
And sitting on the back porch, and I remember going, man, we got to do something. And I remember you telling me, like, I can't really promise you anything, man. Like, this is a new category we're getting into. I don't know anything about it. And I think the promise was like $400 a week, $450 a week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in. Like, let's go. It was anything for me to get out of what I was doing. And it worked out, didn't it? So here we are.
It did. So you trained, got into blinds, and obviously I was building the Louisville area at that point, bringing on installers, trying to kind of grow that as much as I could in those days. And really kind of when I started to take over from Dad, essentially, is about the same time that you came on.
Yep.
And I remember, we used to have monthly meetings where all of the installers would come in, right? I would get the food and all that stuff.
Down in your basement.
Yeah, and in the basement, and then the very first office we got not too god awful long after that. And I even told them when we went that, I was like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Things are going okay today, but it's not promised tomorrow. So
Right.
I talked them into renting me that on a 12-month lease for like $500 a month, $550 a month. And it was, it was a decent spot. It had road frontage, like it was nice. And we started doing meetings there, and we just kind of kept doing that until we got into the second office, right? We had outgrown the first office. We actually outgrew that pretty quick.
Yeah, it didn't take long.
And then before the year contract was up, I remember it actually because it was almost a full year, and they were like, "Hey, we're just going to roll it over into this one. Don't worry about it," because it was the same people that owned the building, moved to the bigger space that they had. And you just, you were installing, and by this time you're doing appliances, I believe, as well.
So I remember the game started was full-blown blinds, and that was kind of, back in those days, it was always, we got to figure it out.
Yep.
We didn't know what we were doing, and I remember buying my first van. And I don't know if you remember that van, but it was the gray Safari Astro. And I think I paid $1,700 for that thing.
Yep.
And ripped all the carpet out of the back and ripped the seats out of the back. And that thing lasted a good while.
They usually do. For some reason, the first ones always last the longest.
That one, I remember getting a couple of years out of that thing, and then Gabe actually took it over and worked out of it for a while when he first came on doing blinds. And I don't know if we want to go down the van trajectory too much, but I can remember getting the second van too.
Yeah.
And that was a big leap as well. I remember, like, I didn't have, we weren't making tons of money back then. I actually mortgaged my house to buy a second van, to kind of get into the appliance game.
Yeah. Yeah. And we started with the appliances, right? So doing appliances, doing window treatments, all here in Louisville.
Yeah. Was it 12 stores?
It was 10. It was about 10 stores at that time. We were sharing rotation with other people, and I remember we started doing the monthly meetings, right? And everybody was coming in, and fast forward a little bit, we start taking all of Louisville, right? Like we were sharing work with other installers, and then we got challenged. If we keep doing better, they will give us more work and kind of phase out the other installers in the area. So we did that, but Evansville was part of the Louisville market. And I remember having a conversation with you, and it's funny because it's similar to the same conversation we had on the back porch of your house in Winchester. Like, I mean, look, I can't promise you anything. I've always been open about, like, look, this is, this could be great, this could be okay, or this could be terrible. Like, I don't know, but if we don't try it, someone else is going to.
Find out together, right?
Yeah. And I said, look, I want you to go to Evansville and kind of help me recreate what we've done in Louisville. By the way, it's, 2.5, 3 hours away. So you're not going to do that every day. And I can't afford to put you in a hotel, but I found this really nice camper and, this campground that's much cheaper than a hotel nightly rate. So, at the time you were single-ish, right? Single-ish. Like I think you and Madison were talking, but you weren't really like
No,
serious at the moment.
We were serious at that time.
Were you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were together when I came on to do blinds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to Evansville and we start trying to essentially build out the same thing that we had done here, which we really weren't even, I mean, to be honest, we weren't even close to where we needed to be here. We were just, without sounding like a jerk, we were better than the other people, which allowed us to take the market share. But we hadn't really fine-tuned it and had a process down per se. It was just every day as a fire, you know, as a fire happens, let's put it out. Let's just do that again in Evansville, and that's where you came in.
I think the big difference in Evansville too is like we hadn't figured out what the model even looked like, because almost everybody that we had locally was friends and family at that point. We didn't know how to hire people. We didn't know how to train people. We didn't know what any of that process looked like.
Yep.
So I can remember, you know, sitting in that camper in the middle of the night and me and you having conversations of like, where do we post ads?
Yep.
How do we, you know, what do we boost ads? Do we use Craigslist? Do we use Facebook? Like
Craigslist.
What does that look like? And we did. And I can remember getting some weirdos from Craigslist that would come knocking on the camper door, like saying, I'm looking for a job.
Yep.
But we did eventually figure it out. I mean, we utilized a lot of, Facebook was the original one that actually took off and was made sense.
Yep.
You know, we'd boost Facebook ads, and then we kind of slowly figured out, like, let's add a photo to make it look like it's a legit business. Like, not that it wasn't, but like, you know, how to make it look legit.
More professional.
Yeah,
it made it look more professional.
And actually do like a readout on like what the business is, what it looks like, where we came from, what we do, you know, rather than just appliance installer.
We just had to start, right? So it's a lot like this, like, right? Like this whole podcast deal. It was like, I've been talking about it for years, and finally it was like, we just have to start, right? Like it doesn't have to be perfect. Each time it'll get better. You know, we'll figure out what worked, we'll figure out what didn't work. And it's the same mentality we had there. And essentially for God, at least 12 months, you were in Evansville more than you were in Louisville.
Oh, 100%.
But we figured it out. And, you know, a couple of things that I wrote down just that I wanted to make sure we hit was like the leap of faith. Right. So thinking through like, you know, our friendship and the similarities and the differences, you know, jumping in with dad in training, leaving and then coming back, you know, mortgaging your house, being able to buy a van, going to Evansville, living in a camper. That's all leaps of faith. Right. So like there's uncertainty and how it's going to work, if it's going to work, and how well it is going to work, if it does work. But the faith that you had and just trying something new, right? The fear, I talk a lot about like the fear of failure will kill any kind of entrepreneur, anyone that wants to do something more or different or have more, be more. If you're afraid, you'll never take that leap of faith, because fear will steer you in the safe direction, right? That 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with the 9 to 5. I always say, like, we've got to have this type of person. If everyone was me, I wouldn't be me, right? So like you've got to have the differences in it. But in a growing business, and especially one that doesn't have a whole lot of structure, or even know what's going on, it takes people that are okay with taking leaps of faith. So I would say you've always been really good at trusting me, even when I was like, I don't know why he's doing this. But like just trusting the process of like, hey, I know if I go out there and I work hard and I don't let fear rule me, and I just treat people well, right? Like we've always treated anyone we've brought in or on like we would like to be treated. And that still reciprocates today. And it worked. It took a while to figure out that Craigslist maybe wasn't the best place to pull people from to go install in people's houses. Facebook was good. We've got a couple other ones now, you know, and you look at today, right? Like we've got a recruiting team and we've got a whole process and like all these different people that take, you know, applications from this area and this area. It's insane to think that sitting in a camper going like, I don't know what we're going to do, but let's just start throwing stuff at the wall until something sticks. That's how you do it.
Oh yeah.
That's how you do it.
Well, it's funny that, like you said, sitting in that camper, figuring that out is what turned into what, Kenny's position is today. Not as a whole, but you know what I mean? We all wore many hats back in that day, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. The trust. So we knew each other as friends. I'm not much older than you, but I never had a brother.
Yep.
And I've always, Shelby in your younger years, she was the same way, right? She was like, Hunter drives me crazy. And I'm like, look, he's my buddy. Like, it is what it is. I've always felt like we've had kind of that connection, right, on my end of just like, maybe I don't agree with what's going on right now, but like, I know who you are, right? Like we've always have had deep conversations and always known each other at a level that was like, people are allowed to experience different lives and they're still good people. You've always been that to me. And I feel like you've always trusted me. Like I know you have, because I'm like, hey, you should go do this. And you're like, I'll try it. So, not having a fear of failure, allowing yourself to take leaps of faith, and trusting in something that's not guaranteed. Right. That's something I would say that is some good qualities of yours that at times might not result in what people or even you may want in the moment, but more times than not, it's gotten you to a place that's good. Yeah. So Evansville, and then
I think I'll touch on that process too. I think a little bit of that process that was so much fun. You say trust, and 100%. Honestly, like I said, I did have a lot of trust. But the other thing that was great about that scenario and what feeds me as a person is being able to build something that hasn't been put together yet. Like that satisfaction of, you're talking about, you have your 9-to-5 kind of guys, and you have, I think, folks like us that enjoy to see something that's here and watch it go here, and you have the ability to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's very it's very satisfying. So to go into the frontier of the unknown and go, let's do this and let's see if we can make something out of it. That is extremely rewarding to me as a person. So I don't think is the fear still there? I mean, it's still there. 100%. But I think that part of the scenario outweighs the fear a lot of times. What's the worst that could happen? You know what I mean?
I've said that. Hey, what's the worst that could happen?
We were there before.
We filed bankruptcy and go back to a townhouse and grilled chicken. Like, I mean,
we had fun then.
We did have a blast. So, it's cool because there's, we've got so many of our peers, that work with us today, and we all have a very similar mindsets, right? And we've got some of them that are a little more cautious than others. But even the ones up there that don't necessarily identify themselves as someone who is a risk taker, they've all taken risks. It's most of the people we have up there came in at a point where we were like growing and had tons of growing pains and tons of uncertainty. That was a risk. They thought it was, I think they may have thought it was more secure than it actually was, at that time. And then after they're in it and they're just fighting the good fight. But most everyone that we've surrounded ourselves with are risk takers of some sorts, right? Or at least someone that's so committed to something, that they won't give up. And I truly feel like that we've built an organization today that, I tell everyone that I don't have the fear of not being able to do something or accomplish something, because I've got people like you, and I know that I can challenge you with something, and you're not gonna stop, right? It may not be perfect the first time or the second time, but like, you're not gonna stop. You're gonna keep, to your point, keep growing that and making it better over time. And that's what got us there. That's what got us from a camper in Evansville to Lexington was your next stop, right? Yep. The field manager, Evansville, and you being in there is really what piqued the field manager concept that we built out on how it works, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. So when we went to Lexington, then it was, hey, we know how to recruit people. I knew how to incentivize you guys, where, you guys were able to essentially like, hey, the better your area does, the more money that you're able to make. Cause I didn't have enough capital or money in the bank to say like, here's just a salary.
Yep.
And it worked. And then it really worked well in Lexington. and you know, all of the people that maybe was unsure about coming on board and maybe coming up from being an installer to a field manager very, very quickly started showing up to those Friday meetings.
That was the telltale sign, I think, because Evansville was such a small market and it didn't produce a lot. It was difficult, but I think it was a good breaking ground for us to figure it out because there wasn't a lot of fallout there. You know, you kept 3 guys on, and if those 3 guys stayed on and worked, I mean, it was pretty cut and dry. And there wasn't a massive volume of work at the time, right? So like when we went to Lexington, that's a whole nother. I mean, it's a quadruple of what that market looks like.
Right.
So yeah, to your point, like to start that scenario, it opened the eyes to a lot of the guys that we have in field management now to like this can be profitable for us and for the team, and this is how you do it.
Yep.
Like I said, we had already built the playbook by Lexington to where we could. What was the one? I can't remember what happened after Lexington.
It was Indy or it wasn't Indy. It was Nashville.
Okay,
Nashville was next.
But yeah, but those 2 markets is what built the playbook for us to understand what a field manager needed to do, how he needed to structure his days, how he needed to manage his people, you know, who we needed to talk to at Lowe's, you know, what relationships we need to build, you know, store visits, the whole 9 yards. So yeah,
it kind of went pretty. It went steady. It was a steady increase from there. Once we started taking some real market share and rolling out the different field managers in areas, when it got to a regional level, right? That's when the corporate office, you know, kind of started dabbling in it as well, and then it took off. It took off. It took off really fast in a lot of areas, to the point where we were like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, we don't want to go this fast, but like we need to go this fast to be that company that gets there. And thank God that we had everyone that was around then, right? It was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of bourbon, a lot of time, a lot of people installing, managing, calling, hiring, training, putting out fires, you know, you name it. It was a little bit of everything.
Yeah, to be a field manager in the beginning was quite tough. Like I said, we've specialized it at this point, but I mean, you had to wear a lot of hats. You were recruiting, you were a lot of times still installing, you had a laptop in the van as you were doing, you were managing, you were talking to stores. I mean, you did everything. So
answering the phones nonstop, 30-minute job takes an hour and 40 minutes.
I remember when AirPods came out, we were all super pumped because you could still talk on the phone and install a dishwasher at the same time.
Especially the cordless ones, because the cords would get hung up on your appliances when you're carrying them and rip it out of your freaking ear.
Yep.
It's crazy, all of the different things, right? So I guess I want you to kind of speak a little bit to maybe your mindset, right? So like, hey, I want you to go to Evansville. I want you to try this out. I've done the math. You know, I've kind of written the template, if you will, of what I think we need to do and how we need to do it. But obviously we've got to get out there and we just got to start it, right? We've got to just do it, see what happens, and go from there. What made you say yes? Like where was your mind at? And I know that's, you know, seems like years ago, but
long time.
What made you pull the trigger?
I mean, I think it does go back to trust. I did have a lot of trust in your thought processes and your ideas you had at the time. And I felt like I could kind of see that we weren't going to fail. The other thing too, like I wanted to be a part of something bigger. Like I was thinking at the time, like if we execute this process the way that that we think that we can, like this could be something really good. And like, I want to be part of that process. I feel like that was my main thought at the time. There wasn't, I'm going to be quite frank, outside of that, like I didn't do a deep dive and like overanalyze that situation too much. Like all the pieces were in place. You know how to be an installer. Let's take the next step and see what we can make out of it.
Right.
Outside of that, like I can't say that, you know, I had a whole lot more thought in why I would do that. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So then Lexington was an easy decision, right?
Easy decision.
Hey, it's bigger, but it's I think it was actually easier because of the volume, right? The amount of stores, there was a greater amount of stores. Eastern Kentucky was a bit of a hiccup, just because it's so rural, right? Like you've got 3 stores out in that area and they're hours apart. And there's not really enough work stemming from one store to support an installer. It's more like, hey, you're gonna have to bounce around. We tried tons of different things.
It taught us how to pivot in those
It
kind
did.
of markets.
It did. It
and
taught us.
understanding loss leader stores and stuff like that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and how to make. We tweaked a lot of the way that we paid out installers, how we route jobs, how we schedule jobs, how we deal with customers, right, that are maybe in a tougher area to service. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, man, I live not far from an Amazon like fulfillment center, and there's tons of stuff when I get on there that's like delivered today or overnight.
right.
That doesn't exist in those areas, right? So we kind of started treating it the same way, where it was like, hey, we need to keep our installers because we don't want turnover. We don't want to have 20 subcontractors every year that just service that area that's in and out, in and out, and out. We want someone that likes doing work for us, that wants to stick around with us, that gives us the availability to be able to service these areas. So to do that, you've got to think about customer satisfaction, but you also have to think about the man swinging the hammer, right? And is he getting home to his family? Is he making enough money, or she? And how does that look? And I think we got better and better and better at that, right? There was a lot of times where it was like, Hunter, get in your van and drive for 5 hours and go put these 2 jobs in. But now there's really not a lot of that. I think we've gotten better, and I think all of it boils down to is consistently from the beginning. It's, hey, we don't have to know the entire solution to this problem, but if we don't start working it, we'll never get to the end of it.
We'll never figure it out.
Yeah. So today you are the vice president of installations for the company, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
you
I
get
am.
to you get to deal with it from a national standpoint. So 415 stores. We touch 13 states. We're in anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 homes a week and growing. I've seen, early years, the leaps of faith, right? The trust, the not being afraid to fail. We've talked about the last couple of years. What got us here won't get us there, and we're right in the middle of that now. You're more on the back end of the management side now more than ever, and it's almost like we're setting more, not near as much now, but even a year ago, we're sitting back in that camper and we're going, hey man, how
What's
do
our
we
next
do
move?
this? And you're like, I don't, Excel. You're like, I've not really messed with it. I'm like, cool, go home and just play with it. Like, don't just sit there and do stupid stuff on it until it starts making sense. And today you live in Excel. You run metrics all the time. You're checking turn times. You're checking on customer satisfaction. And then you're taking all of that, and you're every day, every week, every month, every year, you get better and better and better at it, right? At implementing what you're learning on how to articulate that to the people that are relying on you or that you're managing. So it's a really cool story. I always tell everyone my favorite part about owning Crume Installations is the people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I get to see, my friends, my family, people that aren't related to me that maybe came from different, facets of life, but being able to challenge them, because in my eyes, anyone's pretty much capable of anything, right? Take the blinders off, dig in, and figure it out. I was much more of a dictator in those words in the beginning than I am today.
We've all grown.
Yeah, we've all grown. It's a great way to put it. Because in my head, it was like, well, if I can do this, everyone can do this. Why isn't everyone doing this? But the reality of it is just because I wasn't the smartest person in the room didn't mean I wasn't the most driven. So now, sometimes people are smarter than me in the room, but they're not as driven as I am. So I've got to be able to pump the brakes, right? Because I'll ruin what they bring to the table by trying to shove my mentality down their throat. So I've had to understand that, you are really great at dealing with people. You're great at recruiting. You're great at managing, the field managers or installers or having those conversations. The backside of it is the technology piece wasn't your strong suit, and it's still something that you're growing on today. So giving you the room to be able to say, okay, hey, this is what you're really good at. these are the things that you need to work on, but then giving you the space to do that and not just saying like, why is it taking you 3 days to figure out how to put formulas in Excel?
I was gonna say, like, I feel like this business has been a very good. They use the analogy of the sandbox.
Yep.
When we were building the system and so on and so forth, having that area to play in and try to figure things out, along with doing your job every day.
Yep.
I feel like this business is very good at that, and allowing your own personal growth. Like, we know that we have to do certain things throughout the day, but there's also, I feel like, a scheduled amount of time to go, hey, there's some things that we don't really need to figure out, and just take some time to work on stuff. Right. And then doing that with the people that we have in this company, I think helps strengthen everybody because of how tight knit this group is. I don't know how much of you spoke to that in past interviews or not, but like all the guys that we've grown up with are the people that run this company.
Yeah.
And when we talk about us and how long we've known each other, all of our management team, well, not all, but I'd say 75, 80% of our management team has been around us as long as we've been around each other.
Yeah.
So it creates a very tight knit group of people that have a no bullshit mentality, if you want to be quite frank. I mean, we're all pretty cut and dry with each other and can have tough conversations. And I think it sets us up to be successful, where I hear outside companies don't have that room to play, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I hired you for this job. Why aren't you doing this job? And sometimes, one of the things that I've kind of learned, and it is probably because, I brought in friends and family. I tell everybody all the time, like, I did all the things you're not supposed to do, right? I hired my family, I hired my friends. But, I think that, for me, and knock on wood and hope to God that it's never an issue. But for me, if you do the wrong things right, they become the right things to do. And I genuinely care about the well-being of everyone, and being close-knit makes me care even deeper. And then having that same mentality for the people that didn't come from the friend group or the family group,
bringing them into the same.
They become the same. They're the same. Like, I feel the same way about them, and I want them to flourish. I want them to grow. I love watching development within the company. I love watching, someone that sold used cars and new cars to God knows the mortgage thing to, now being able to speak to you and have an intelligent conversation every Wednesday about what's the temperature of the company today, right?
Yep.
There's 10,000 homes that we're in a week. Tell me how we're doing, and trusting you at this point, right? Role reverse, where I'm like, oof, it's time to trust that you're going to be able to give me the information I need and do this without messing it up. It's a very cool thing to experience, and it's one of my favorite things. The Christmas party that we do every year, the CrumeCations with all the employees, seeing the camaraderie and the relationships that are built within this. They're not just work; they're genuine, lifelong friendships and family. Like, it may not be blood, but it's family. Anytime something goes wrong or anytime someone needs something, man, it's like an army of people just dive in. And I love that. A lot of our scheduling coordinators and CSRs and everything else, there's been several times, the Atlanta launch that didn't go as planned. I mean, those people were up at like 2:00 in the morning just sorting through craziness on a
lot
weekend.
of sleepless nights during that scenario.
Yeah. And no one complained. No one said like, well, how much money are you going to give me? Or like, they just knew like this needed to be taken care of. I'm going to do it. And I know Tim well enough, and I know the company well enough to know like they've got me when that time of need is also needed, whether it be a vehicle or a place to wash and dry your clothes, like whatever. Like I pour into the people around me because they pour back into me, and it's never failed me. I've gotten scrapes and bruises along the way, but like that just makes me trust and love the people that are in it for the right reasons even more. So I 100% thank you for like our friendship, for trusting me for whatever reasons you decided to those times. I feel like, today I can at least have like a background of like, hey, you should trust me. Look, I can do this. But even more than that, the last few years of our lives, we've gotten deeper on more like an intimate level, if you will, from our faith and our family. And we're starting to see that kind of blossom and grow as well
yeah.
within the company and all of the people. We're all so good at seeing the flaws of each other and also seeing, the benefits that person has. Like, oh man, where did you get that? It's never like, well, don't buy the same truck I have, like, or don't go to the same place to get my haircut. Like, I like your haircut. Where'd you get it done? Like, bro, I'll go with me. Like, I'll take
Right.
you there. And and now that's pouring over. We've got it pretty locked in on the company, right? Like, we all know our places, we all know what we need to do, we all put on the hats that we need to put on at the time, we all trust one another. We're still growing, we're still going. There's going to be new positions, new tiers, new achievements, all of this stuff over time, but all while doing that, we're also learning more about life. We're as Ruck would say, we're doing life together. We're not just working together. We're getting into the realm of like doing life together, and that's super. It's super rewarding, right? The faith that has grown, in me internally, and then watching you and us again, just like we had a conversation yesterday for an hour and a half after work of just. I feel this way, and you're like, dude, I'm right there. Like, I haven't said anything to anybody, but like, I'm feeling the same way.
Yep.
Just the alignment and the conversations that we have now aren't just, hey, how are we going to get Miss Jones' dishwasher installed in the middle of nowhere by Tuesday? It's, how's things going at home? What struggles do you have? The benefit of me and Shelby being together for so long is we've been through quite a bit of ups and downs and everything in between. So, a lot of the times I'll hear like, hey, I spoke with someone the other day and we were talking about kind of the roommate stage, right, of marriage, where it's like, we go to work, we deal with the kids, we come home, we're like roommates at this point. And I'm like, dude, I completely can relate with you. And we sit there and we talk about that, and it's little pieces of our lives that we're able to share with each other, and it's not going to fix the problem, but it's gonna help. And just being able to talk to someone alone, right? Like, men usually, that's not
Don't
a big
have that
thing,
conversation,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's just I always say that men are developed like storage units, and if something happens or something's bothering us, we throw it in the storage unit, we shut it, we lock it. But the problem is over time those storage units get full. And once you fill up with your storage units and you're all the way to the tip top and everything's, busting at the seams, there's nowhere to store anything. And that's when you start seeing people really start to fall off, right? Like, everything's overwhelming, or depression comes in. There's a lot of like suicides and different things that happen, maybe alcoholism, drugs, abuse, whatever that looks like. From being a man and speaking on this in my life, I started having my storage units fill up, and man, I felt like they were full. And we had a lot of conversations during that time or season, as you love so much, of my life.
Season.
But man, when I started unpacking, right, that's when I would just quit being afraid and roll up that roller door and go, hey, I need to go through this and get rid of all the stuff I've thrown in here that I'm never going to use again. And I need to sort through this. And being able to talk to you and talk to the other people at the office, I started doing therapy, and like, that was huge. Like, understanding how the emotions and the mind work. And, again, I did all the wrong things in business, and now I'm doing a lot of the wrong things that men don't do. Right. And it helped, and it's infectious. And I see people in the office doing similar things now. Like, we talk, and then, we all went through the Rise Up Kings experience over the last year or so. And that's more of a deep dive as well into like, hey, hey, this is how it works. Like, we're still human beings, right? We still have feelings. We've got thoughts. We've got emotions. We've got all this stuff. Deal with them. Talk about them. You don't have to run around crying on the side of the road with a box of tissues everywhere you go.
No,
But like,
I don't think that experience tells anybody to be a victim by any means,
no,
but,
it's the complete opposite. Like,
clean out the closet mentality.
stop
definitely needs to
being a
happen
victim.
occasionally. Yeah.
Like, open the storage unit and stare at it. Clean it out. That way you've got more room for your wife and your kids and your friends and your business and all the people that you encounter. Because, man, how cool is it when we show up now and we've never met someone before, but we're not busting at the seams, and we've got plenty of empty units open to be able to show love or respect or kindness to a stranger. And all of a sudden, I mean, I've had it happen several times. I've watched you do it. The lady in Florida when we were launching that, when you sat next to her and had conversations, the connection that you have, like we as human beings are meant to connect and be in fellowship, right? But to get there, you got to make sure you know how to deal with you, right? I see that pouring over into a lot of the people in our organization and even outside and around our organization. Or I tell everybody all the time, our little town's on fire in their faith and like the community and just everything that's going on. Speak on that a little bit.
Well, I was thinking, I was going back to like faith and how we got into faith. It's been, I guess, for me, 2.5 years, I guess now. But taking lead of the organization to where we allow it in, not force it on anybody, but then to watch it flourish throughout this company has been amazing.
Right.
And I think, the Rise Up Kings experience, I'll give it to them. I think they cracked their heads open.
They scrambled our eggs.
For sure, to that experience as to, I don't think anybody needed a wake-up call on how to be a man, but I think it was more of, look at how you're experiencing life, and is it a good way to experience life? And like you said, is there bad things that you need to let go of? Is there things that you're hanging on to that changes your personality about the people around you right now? And if you're able to get rid of that stuff, how much happier and lighthearted you are going to be, and like you said, able to bring in new relationships rather than hanging on to the old dirty ones. As far as I'm trying to think about where we can go with faith, but
so the Rise Up Kings experience, I went to it. You guys, again, that was one of those blind trust moments where I came back and was like, this is one of the best things I've ever been through in my life. You guys should go. And all of you were like, we're in. And coming back from that, I've said since I talked to you guys, like, hey, this isn't a company thing. This is a me and I love you as a human being thing, and I want you to experience what I got to experience in this. But it does such a good job of like we've had tougher conversations than we've ever had.
I think that is one thing it teaches you of don't be scared to have a hard conversation.
Yes, because you want that, right?
Like everybody wants it.
I'm a people pleaser by nature. I'm a yes man. Like I want to make sure that you're happy. I want to do this. I want to do that. And sometimes to my own demise. And in the last year, I've had conversations with you where you're just like, yes, like this is what I want. And I'm like, I thought I was being a jerk. And you're like, no, I want to hear this stuff.
Well, I don't think any man wants to live in a false reality.
Yep.
And I think we've all had that conversation with our wives before to where, and give me the real stuff. Like I don't sugarcoat it. Like if I ask you the question, I want what pops in the head and what comes, just give it, throw it right out the mouth, right?
Yeah, unfiltered.
Yeah, I don't want to filter it because I don't want to live in that false reality of a narrative of the people that are closest to you that can't give you honest feedback. And I think that can skew someone's mental discernment of themselves. Like you're not even looking at the real person if no one tells you what that is, right? So that's one thing else that I love about the atmosphere that we have is if you say give me the honest feedback, like here it comes. Are you ready?
Yeah. What are you sure?
What level we want to play on here?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's cool, and that's not even just at work at this point, right? Like you've brought that into into your marriage, you've brought that into the relationships with your kids with your parents, friends. We've got a mutual friend that we speak on and speak to, and there's just more realism to it. And through all of that experience, for me, it allowed me to have a connection with God and with my faith. That really, man, I reflect on it, and you watch the 12 disciples, and you look at all of the stuff that they went through, and how Jesus kind of led them, right? Where he wasn't giving them false hopes, he wasn't sugarcoating, he was just like, hey, you screwed up, bud. Like, but I'm going to tell you screwed up, and then like let's move on, and the world's not over, and I think that's going to allow us to even level up to that next stage, right? To where people trust us, and now they're going to respect us for our opinions because we're not going to be unreal with them. We're going to just tell them like, hey, I don't know if we've had this conversation where I'm like, hey, you need to dig in on this. I need you to be very focused in this area because you're not where you should or could be. Whereas before it would just, I would just be like, well, man, maybe just keep trying. Like,
Oh, that's horseshit.
you're great at cars. Like, this is great. No, it would just be like, hey, I don't care. Like, I was like, you suck, figure it out.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Because for me, in my head, I'm looking at this and I'm like, how do I turn this bottle into a boat? Like, oh, I don't know. Well, you suck, figure it out. So I'm like, well, hey, you suck, you figure it out. That's not always the best way to talk.
No, I mean, it worked for me in certain instances.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said before, you have to learn how to talk to certain people. I mean, if you ever get in any type of management role, you can't talk to one person the way you're going to talk to another person. One thing isn't going to motivate them how it's going to motivate the other person, for sure. I'm someone that wants very precise and direct feedback. Like, and if it's shit, tell me it's shit.
Yep.
Whereas, some people you get a little bit more soft with.
Yep.
That's not softness isn't a motivator for me.
Yep.
But like I said, I think that's a very big thing in how you run the business, and you're a genius at that. So I'll give you that one.
Yeah, it's the personality. So understanding in those relationships, what do they mean, right? We've got a lot of people that I call them overthinkers, but man, how fortunate am I that I have them, because they allow me to slow down.
Oh yeah.
Right? My whole time I'm pushing them to speed up, but I know that they're never going to fully get on the same speed that I will. And like, I need that balance. I need that structure. But I also know that I can't say something too literal to them, because if I do, they take it at face value, right? If I tell you like, hey, you suck, figure it out, you're going to be like, oh gosh, this guy's a jerk. Like, all right, like I'm going to dig in. Whereas, they're going to be like, oh my God, like I suck. Like, am I going to, where else am I showing up like this? Like, I suck at this. I suck at this. And like all of a sudden it ruins them, right? Like I had to figure that out, and I wasn't great at it for a very long time. But I can say now, like, hey, I'll preface it like, hey, I want to talk to you about this, but like, I don't want you to think that like this is who I think of as you as a human being or as a whole. But like, there's an area I need you to concentrate on, and I'd love to support you in it. And it may not be that graceful in the moment, right? But the essential thing that I'm trying to get through to them is like, hey, you have tons of value, but I need to have more value in this spot. And I see something that I think you can do that maybe you don't think you can, but don't take away your value that you already have. Articulating that without ruining the mindset or the moment or that person or the relationship is crucial. And I would say that I've gotten much better at that, but also, reading, going back and forth, because so many things correlate, like reading scriptures and reading different things. It helps relate, because there's so much stuff today that even, so many years ago, or people were people, the mindset's the mind, and like feelings and emotions, and like it's helped to be able to go like give grace at times, right? Don't just always come down with the big hammer. Yeah. And that allows, again, I've allowed people to grow from a business perspective. I've now am learning and have learned how to help and be a part of their growth from like a emotional standpoint as well, which only makes them stronger, right, in life and in the business, in their marriage and their friendships. It's a cool gig, and I'm seeing you doing the same things, right? Because I am that guy that pushes you. You and Robert, I push more than anyone else to like, hey, you need to figure this out. Like, you can come talk to me, but like, I'm going to challenge the shit out of you with what you bring me. Like, you can bring me this beautiful thing, and I'm going to look at it and go, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? Well, I can never bring you anything. No. I appreciate the work that you've done here, but I'm constantly going to push you to find the gaps, because when you get into a situation that you're going to present this to someone for a reason, and they shoot those questions to you, you better be able to fill those gaps, and you better be able to fill them quick, or they're going to call me and say, hey, this isn't the right guy. Right. But making sure that it doesn't mean I devalue you. Yeah. It just means that
it's practice for the big game.
That when that conversation happens, you better be ready, because they don't care about your feelings. Right. Yeah. And from Ruck again, or Ruckner, I love you enough that I don't care about your feelings either. So I'm going to let you know. So future, what, or if someone was to ask, if someone said, Hunter, I want to know, I gave Colton this question. You look at Wyatt or Waylon, right now, and let's use Wyatt, right? How old is Wyatt now?
14.
He's 14 years old, and maybe this is something you've done, maybe this is something you haven't. But if he looked at you and he said, "Dad, I want to know 3 to 5 things that you could teach me or instill in me today that will allow me to be as good or better than where you are at the age you are today," what would that be? What would that look like? And that's tough,
Yeah, you really
but
put
it's
me on the
also
spot here, huh?
it's also good.
3 things.
And it don't have to be just business; it's life. Like, we do life together. What would you tell him?
I mean, based upon what we have, what brought us to our success in this company, I think it has to be relationships. And you know, as we've spoke before, relationships wasn't one of my biggest strong suits in the beginning. You know, that was unfortunately me being stubborn, and not valuing other people's opinions, not understanding that the more relationships that you build, the more connections that you build, the better your circle, the stronger your circle. And it allows you to learn from people that you never would have thought you would have learned before. So as I've gotten older, I've understood, or I do now understand, how valuable it is to be involved with other people and just genuinely care about other people. So that would be the first thing, would be, you know, make sure you manage and obtain healthy relationships. Strong work ethic is another one. You know, the more you fall down, you know, it's okay to fall down. Let's just say that we've taken plenty of nosedives in this scenario, and all it really has done to us is taught us, hey, let's not do it that way, or what good things can we gather from this scenario that would make this scenario work better. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid of failure. That would be another one that I would really push home. You know, I think that's something with the generation that we're dealing with right now. I think they feel like if you do fall down and fail, the end is coming, and there's no coming back from it. So like I said, I would push that one big time. Faith. I mean, faith would be my third. You know, I can honestly say the walk that I've had recently in my faith has made me a much better human being. Reading the Word and staying close to God has truly changed my life. I mean, we could go down that path for a long time, and I don't know if we have time for that, but yeah, the love of the Lord. Stay in His Word, trust His Word. There's nothing. Well, we can get into political debates there. I don't want to go too far down that road either. But faith, faith would be my third.
Faith. And in that, I think, you know, one thing that I respect of you, and that I know that you're gonna be able to articulate it to your children and in your other relationships. And, you know, we've spoke about this. There's a lot of drivers that pull people away from either talking about faith, let alone being in faith, right? We speak about this a lot. We talked again last night. We were speaking about different things, and exploring faith and trusting that we will get where we're supposed to be in it. And
like trusting there's a plan.
Trusting, just kind of going with it, right? Like, it doesn't all line up. It doesn't make sense. And again, it all flows back into who we are as individuals, right? So like the company and the people in it and the success and the money and all this other stuff really boils down to the people, who they are, right? Like, who they are. And that's what makes us so great at what we do. But we also flow that through into so many different facets of our life, right? So now we're seeing that in our faith realm, right? Where, you know, we're going to go after it. We're going to maybe not understand it all the way right away. We're going to keep having a go at it. We'll go here. Maybe we'll go here. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do Rise Up Kings. We'll do Bible studies. We'll do conversations. You know, maybe we go to church every Sunday. Maybe we don't.
Volunteering.
But allowing yourself to, as you said, fall down, right? Like, just giving yourself enough grace to go, hey, this is just like everything else that I go through in my life. I'm not perfect at it. I may not ever be perfect at it, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to put in the work towards it. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep trying and doing it bigger, better, stronger, faster. However I've got to do it, I'm going to continue to do it. And I feel like you plug that in, right? You plug that into every different thing that you get into. You're into racing trucks, right? You used to not be anything into that. You probably didn't know how to work on them. You didn't know what all the different things meant. But watching you plug yourself into that and grow and learn, and I used to joke, and I still will joke with you about every time you go to a race, your truck breaks down and you can't race. The first time I ever went with you is when we took my car, and it was your bachelor party.
Yeah, it was our first.
And I felt bad, and I had a brand new Corvette, and I'm like, well, you can drive it around the track if you want. And I'm like, you're here, it's your bachelor party. I don't want you to not do this because
you did 120 in the back straight. And that thing.
Yeah, I had a lot of faith and trust. But like just plugging in, right? So I think Hunter Becton as a person, create genuine relationships. You said you were speaking on that, and I'm a huge guy into that. I'll raise my hand and tell you that is the most important thing, and you can flow that into everything. You can flow it into your marriage, your kids, your business, your faith, everything. The people that come to your house and do work with you or for you. I care about these people. Like they're doing a service for me, right? They don't have to, they could come here and do a half-ass job. They could not show up. There's so many hey, you showed up, and I appreciate your time. Because you are now spending time here instead of probably doing anything that you want to do. And just small talk, right? Not being that guy that just stands over their shoulder and makes sure they're doing it right. But hey, how are you? How long you been doing this? Just finding out what there is to know about them. Because again, I've spoke about it before. I'm a sponge in the factor of I want to know something about everyone that's around me because everyone's got something to offer. So genuine relationships is giant, and I will agree that you have transitioned into such a relationship person, and I still see you continuously push yourself to grow in that because your natural being isn't like this.
No, I'm naturally introverted for sure.
Yeah, you're not gonna just jump out in the crowd and be like, "Hello, everyone, my name's Hunter." I remember the first time I pushed you to come out of your shell on that in Florida at the freaking seafood restaurant. I hate seafood, but you're a big seafood guy. And I told you at the hotel, I was like, man, you've got to get better at organically just talking to people and create relationships, right? So I challenge you. I said, want to go? Let's sit, whoever you sit next to tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to talk to them and find out about their life, find out who they are and connect with them. And it was an older lady. And I ended up sitting there all night by myself eating because you and her just hit it off. And you learn, and you came back and you're like, man, that was really cool. She's a really cool person. And I think that really triggered you to be like, holy crap, there's millions of people that are way smarter than me that can pour so much into me. And I don't know what you learned from her that night, but it was enough to pique your interest to continue to do it. And I see you doing it more and more now where you're like, hey, I don't want to just know you for personal gain or just know you to know you. I want to know you. I want to know who you are so that I can take anything that you have that's good that would help me with my family or my faith or my life. And I want to implement that. It's not personal gain per se. It's personal development.
Oh yeah, personal development for sure. But that was a fun game we used to play. Yeah. Every time we'd go out of town, we didn't do it all the time, but we did it a lot. To where tonight's the night that we're not going to sit together. You have to just go find somebody at the bar or whatever, and you're with them for as long as they're there.
That's your buddy.
Yeah, that's your buddy.
That's your buddy.
And that helped us with the relationship building a lot. That was a fun game that I feel like at the time we didn't really know what we were doing, but I think it helped a lot of us grow in that direction for sure. But yeah, to take this is one thing that I learned from the Rise Up King experience too, is when you're reserved, you don't know how much you're not sharing with someone that you could share. You know what I mean? When we were there, and I think we're very modest when it comes to the size of the company and how many people that we impact, because I guess we've been around it for so long. But then when you go, it was at I think RupCon when we were there. Yep. That was when I had a light flip switch, and we were doing we were helping the sex trafficked women.
Yep.
And we were talking about, we're organizing the groups, who knows how to do what, so on and so forth. And then we started talking about our business, what it looked like, how our systems and processes work. And then I was like, man, you are being so stingy with the things that you know and not being able to pour over into someone else is so selfish and terrible of you, if you want to be quite honest.
Right.
Like I said, that was one thing that I take away from it all the time is like, just take the time to open up. You could be giving someone something, they could be giving you something. You never know what that relationship is going to turn into.
Right.
And like you said, not to look at it, never look at it as, you know, there's something I'm going to take from this conversation. There was one recently, I think I told you about, when I think Madison was out somewhere and I was like, I'm going to go get some food. And I played the game and I went to the Waffle House and ended up sitting down and talking to someone for an hour. It was an old lady. I sat down and talked to her for like 2 hours one day at a Waffle House. And it was just a nice conversation. You know what I mean? So if you've never played that game, give it a try.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, the older people, they've got a lot of knowledge. They got a lot of stories. You know, they might not be able to say like, hey, this is how you get your P&L to look better.
Right.
But man, they've been through it. Like they've lived through things that we've never experienced yet. So, you know, I would say it's the cheat code to life, right? Like, hey, I haven't got to this level yet, but I already know how to play it. I know how to win.
And that was some of the talks that we had at RuckCon too, as far as the steps that the growing pains we went through as a business. And, you know, watching guys that, you know, they've got an outfit, you know, I think of the guy I was talking to had a little roofing business. You know, he had like 6 guys and he was talking about his infrastructure and how he was hiring people. Like, I don't know how to hire people. And I'm like, well, buddy, let me tell you something. You know,
got a camper close?
Yeah. And I was like, you don't think about how much knowledge that you sit on until you open up and have those conversations.
Right.
And I gained a lot of enjoyment from talking. I sat down and talked to that guy for an hour and was like, yeah, this is where we started. This is the things that I learned to make my ads look good. This is what brought on people. These are the things that you shouldn't do. This is what brought in a bunch of junk. You know what I mean? So on and so forth. So yeah, like I said, that was a rewarding experience to make me go, stop being a selfish turd and open up and talk to people.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So genuine relationships, don't be afraid to fail, and lean into your faith.
Yep.
It's got all the stories in it, and guarantee you there's a lot of them we haven't experienced yet that it'll help us, it'll guide us through as well. So awesome. Well, I loved having you on. I'm sure you will be back on as we peel back some more layers as we go along. You know, we'll probably deep dive a lot more into some of the experiences that we've been through that I think, you know, the goal of this is to keep bringing people on. That's not just me, right? I am, you know, I've only got so much depth to my story, whereas, you know, each one of you guys and girls that'll be on this show is going to have different lenses, right? Like the growth, the growing up, like all of that stuff matters. That's why I like getting into that with each person that I bring in. Like, hey, where did this start for you? Like, right? Like what was the pivotal moment in your life? What did you have to go through to get there? How did you get there? What was home life like? Because at the end of the day, we've got all of these people, right? And we're all very successful together, but we're also successful individually. And none of us have the same story, right? I've never sat down with anyone and been like, oh my gosh, I grew up exactly like you did. And everything that happened in your life happened in my life. It's very important because as people hear this, you know, there's going to be people like me, there's going to be people like you, and knowing that like, man, if I go through and I start honing in on what I want to become, it's still possible, right? Mm-hmm. It may be that you know, someone like me that's running a business now more into a cut and dry, like you suck, fix this, versus like, hey, how are you first? You good? Because I need to make sure that like you don't have a ton of stuff going on at home. And I had to go through that myself to be able to go, dang, like I got a lot of shit going on in my personal life. When I come up to the office and people are just asking me to solve these problems for them and asking me questions and wanting me to run this business. And like, does anyone even give a shit how I'm doing?
Right.
Does anyone even care that when I leave here, all hell is about to break loose? This is the only place that's like calm for me right now. No. So it was like, well, shit, I'm not going in there and saying like, how are you? Did you have a good weekend? Not just like in passing, but like genuinely, like tell me something you did. Like, you know, how is your marriage? How's your kids? How's this relationship? How's your parents doing? Like, do I genuinely care if I'm only trying to build you up as a vice president of Crume Installations? No, like I don't care about you personally if I'm only talking to you in a business tone. So it allowed me to grow. And again, that's trials and tribulations of my life. So I'm hoping that maybe someone somewhere will hear this and they're going into the office every day and they're saying like, hey, I always see those, what is it off of Office Space, the TPC reports, whatever they are.
On Monday.
Stop doing that and just find out like, you good? Like, how are you? Anything you need from me before we dive into this? And hey, if you've that something going on, let's talk about that instead of this paper or whatever. Granted, you've got to have limitations to that, right? You're going to have people that have something going on that never stops, right? They maybe either seek it out or it just follows them like the bubonic plague. But still understanding how to conversate with them and being able to get the message that you need to get done for the business, while also taking care of the human being behind it. So it's good stuff. I'm excited to keep going on this and, have you back.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again
soon. So I love you, buddy. I appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
Alrighty.
Thank you for tuning in to the CrumeCast podcast. We're excited to continue to share our story with you. Our new guests that are coming on have a lot more to tell. You've got a lot more to learn. So we really hope that you keep tuning in and we will see you next time. Have a blessed day.